So what does net zero mean? So our definition is aligned with the World Green Building Council's definition and the global definition. A net zero building is one that's very efficient, so it has really optimized energy efficiency, and then also uses, either on-site or off-site renewables. But it doesn't necessarily have to be off the grid. A net zero carbon building means that the net effect over 12 months of carbon is zero. So the amount of kilowatt hours that you draw, and in South Africa that would be carbon based because of our grid. It's not like Iceland where we've got geothermal and it's not a carbon intensive energy supply. Needs to be matched by an equal supply of renewable energy, which in most cases, from a building perspective, is going to be PV or with some of the wind farms. So this is so this is the definition of net zero, and this is how we define it for our projects. And if you think about it from a demand and a supply side, you always want to optimize your demand side solution. So that's energy efficiency, looking at your orientation, your glazing, your insulation, before you come with supply side solutions, right? So you don't want to put PV onto an inefficient building because you're actually just wasting the PV. So you really want to make sure that you get energy efficiency right. And basically, you want to shoot the lights out in that department before you bring the PV or the alternative supply on, whatever that might mean. So that's a key principle. It's also worth noting that, in terms of government, our 4 major metros have signed up for the goal to have new builds designed to a net zero standard by 2030. So they were part of an internationally funded program. Some of you might have been aware of it. But all of them have actually been developing, and some of them have already developed bylaws to promote this. So I can send some information through to the SAIV to share, with your members. But this was a really great example of local government being strong from a sustainability and from a leadership perspective. I know we do have many criticisms, around government, but maybe also just to share that there are pockets of, excellence within government that are really trying to push and support the sustainability agenda at a national level or at a local municipality level. And some of you might be aware, but eThekwini actually has come out with rebates for net zero buildings. And I don't know if any of you have explored that in any of your evaluations with clients, but they've come out with a rebate for a net zero building or for a green building, and they're quite significant.
Okay, this is just a little bit more about the climate change conferences. But if you look at the interviews after the climate change conferences, a lot of the ministers actually said we've reached agreement, but I think that the agreement was a waste of time. And what the conferences did not address was the concerns of farmers. Farmers are the most important source of the food chain. Without farmers, nobody can eat. But the farmers' issues, or the issues raised by the farmers, was not addressed in any of the conferences. They've left the farmers really to their own devices. Some countries, like in the EU, like France and Germany, subsidize a lot of their farmers in what crops to grow to help feed the nation. If you look at a country like China, for instance, they have a population, the second largest population in the world, but they do not have enough space in their country to grow crops. So what they do is they lease land in other countries. They have leased a large part of Georgia, almost 1/8 the size of Belgium, the size of Belgium, 1/8 of Georgia is leased to the Chinese government for growing crops. They've leased land in Argentina, they've leased land in Brazil, they've leased land in Africa. I know that there's been a couple of sales of wine farms in Paarl and Franschhoek to Chinese buyers. They're not there to make the wine, they're there to export the grapes. So if the farm was making wine, before they purchase the farm, they don't make wine anymore. The grapes are harvested and exported back to China. Yeah. Because we, at the moment, South Africa is also sitting on a massive, what do you call it, larder of wine that we can't sell. In Kenya, for instance, the Chinese have also leased large areas of land to grow maize, again, to feed their population. And if you look at the area of China, the amount of land that they cannot use, which is contaminated, is actually a state secret in China. You won't find it anywhere in the newspapers. If you need that information, you have to get it from underground sources, because there's just so much land that is contaminated that is completely useless. Say again?
Contaminated by what?
By the heavy industry. You know, the world goes, a couple of years ago or many decades ago, the world went to China to get stuff made cheaply. So in China, they don't have any environmental controls in place. So if you want to use ammonia, for instance, to facilitate the manufacturing process and it's spilled out on the land, well, that's just too bad. So that's the reason why. And obviously a lot of those chemicals that they're using is finding their way into the rivers, and obviously then it's affecting the farmland, which means that they can't grow crops.